more on the scorching week across vast stretches of the U.S. This summer's broken records include 30 days straight in Phoenix with temperatures reaching over 110. The all-time hottest night ever in Death Valley, dropping only to 116 degrees at midnight. The longest stretch above 60 degrees in Portland, Maine. And the highest ocean temperature ever recorded off South Florida's coast. So this morning we're talking to Jeff Goodell about his new book, The Heat Will Kill You First. Goodell has been writing about climate for the last 2 decades. So much has changed.
There is no relief in sight from the brutal heat.
In Phoenix,
in California,
in Portland,
Chicago, Detroit, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland have unhealthy air conditions.
In Houston, roads buckled.
Even by South Florida standards, this heat is excessive.
Heat is vibration.
Heat is vibration. So, if I touch this rock and it's been sitting out in the sun and I can feel the heat from the rock coming into my fingertips, and what's happening there is that rock, the molecules in that rock are vibrating faster than the molecules in my hand. That's transferring that vibration to my fingertips.
Jeff Goodell's book, The Heat Will Kill You First, shares frightening stories of those who've died from extreme heat, but also explains why people keep seeking it.
We glamorize beach destinations all the time. We have hot lists.
Totally.
Hot people. People generally think warm is good.
Yeah.
Why are they wrong?
Well, they're not. I mean, warm, people like warm, warm is one thing. Hot is something different.
Extreme heat has been defined as an average annual temperature above 85 degrees. The point at which our bodies, well-calibrated heat machines, start to get thrown off.
A steady temperature is essential to the functioning of our bodies in every way. And as we get into these hotter environments, hotter conditions, it gets more and more difficult for our bodies to maintain that thermal equilibrium.
Today, around the world, 30 million people live in extreme heat. A recent study cited by Goodell says that by 2070, that number will be 2 billion. And it's not just brief heat waves or ill-timed hikes that can be lethal. Extreme heat is a slow creep.
This is one of the spots you talked about in the book.
We met Goodell in El Paso, near the banks of the Rio Grande, a crucial region for food production.
One of the things I wrote about in the book is the difficulty for, the food that we eat to continue to be grown as the temperatures get hotter and hotter.
In the last 2 decades, Goodell says global agricultural production is 21% lower than it would have been without climate-driven heat and drought. Land mammals are on the move, going to higher, cooler latitudes, while malaria-carrying mosquitoes are spreading to new places.
This is about more than just you and me and every other human on the planet. Heat impacts every living thing. We're not going to, air condition the forests. We're not going to air condition the wheat fields and cornfields where we grow our food.
There are some who still immediately recoil when they hear the terms global warming or climate change. Some have suggested just saying pollution. Maybe none of it is complete.
None of those phrases captures the urgency and the scale of what's changing. This is not just about, plastic bottles on the side of the road or something like that. This is an existential threat to our civilization as we know it.
For those who deny climate change is taking place or that the world is getting hotter, you wrote this book, but do you try to engage when you talk to those people, or do you just try to do your work?
Just as I don't want to have a conversation with you about is gravity real or not, there are certain fundamentals that I take as a baseline for our conversations. The people I want to reach are the people who understand the basics, who understand that, yes, we burn fossil fuels, those fossil fuels put CO2 into the atmosphere, the CO2 traps heat, and our world is getting hotter. Those are very basic, fundamental science things. I want to communicate with people who don't understand the risks and exactly the scope and scale of what we're talking about.
Goodell says as we continue looking for ways to stop pumping carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, we have an added advantage. 20 years ago, clean energy required subsidies and often technology that didn't work.
Now it's been reversed. Now clean energy, solar and wind, is in virtually every part of the world cheaper than fossil fuel energy. This energy transformation that's happening is happening really fast.
Despite many dark stories and facts in the book, you remain hopeful.
I do.
Why?
I think that this is a kind of inflection point where we're rethinking everything. We're rethinking where we get our energy, we're rethinking how we're building our cities, we're rethinking, how we live our lives, the food we eat. And I think it's a tremendous opportunity for change, for a more just, healthier, kind of better world.
Yes, it's summer. Yes, it's supposed to be hot. That's what a lot of people will say. But the economics part of this is interesting when he talks about how it's so much cheaper now and it's more workable, these clean energy options, and they weren't 20 years ago. They required the gimmicks and subsidies. There was a lot of controversy around them. It's been changing very quickly.
Right. And yes, it's supposed to be hot, but this is likely the coolest summer that we are going to see. It's going to keep getting hotter unless we start making some of these changes.
Yeah, you mean cool in terms of it'll just keep getting hotter.
It's going to get worse and worse. And
Yes.
I think it's interesting that he calls this an inflection point, a tipping point, but he sees this as an opportunity in that inflection point rather than the dire situation. I mean, how doom and gloom it has been.
Yeah.
All right.